So because of the results from the 2020 NHL entry draft and the lottery, we're going to take a look at some other scenarios, one that I have proposed, and I'm going to ask you guys down in the comment section down below, what do you think of it, and do you have any ideas for a new NHL draft lottery system? Leave that in the comment section down below, and we're going to talk about mine in this video. If you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe down below, and let's take a look at the NHL Draft Lottery. So the NHL Draft Lottery always seems to anger fan bases, maybe for this season make other teams happy like the Los Angeles Kings because they moved up, or whoever wins that play, or whoever loses the playing round and wins that first overall pick this year, I'm sure they won't mind it too much. But the Detroit Red Wing fans out there, the Ottawa Senator fans out there that we were pretty confident would at least be getting in the top three. Only the Ottawa Senators got the third overall pick out of those two teams. So we're going to be taking a look at that in this video. So let's start things off looking back in the lottery simulation we saw back from 2000 all the way up to 2014. Now, it was the same way it kind of is now. Obviously, it was more favored for the first overall pick. The first three picks were kind of in the worst that the first overall pick could do was fourth overall. That was the worst possible thing they could get. So they had a 25% chance, the 30th overall team in the NHL, a 25% chance. So that's a 1 in 5 odds. Basically one of every 5 times you would run the simulation, the 30th overall team would win the draft lottery. And as you go down, but the worst they could pick was fourth. Now keep that in mind. So now we move on to the new format from 2015 to 2017, where the worst team in the NHL went from a 25% chance down to a 20% chance. Now also remember though, their chances of drafting fourth overall were still 47%. So there was still an almost 50-50 chance that they would draft fourth overall, which in most scenarios, that's the most likely situation you would see. So now we move on to the new format. And it changed things pretty massively. It went from 25% from 2000 to 2014. From 2015 to 2017, you saw a 20% chance. And now with the new format, the worst team in the NHL has only an 18.5% chance of getting that first overall pick. And they also have more than a 50% chance, so it's more likely than not that they would be drafting fourth overall. Now, the reason for that, they changed the lottery where the top 3 teams could possibly take that first overall pick. So more likely than not, there would be other teams, 15 other teams that could possibly pass that worst team, which in this case was the Detroit Red Wings. So more likely than not, you're going to see the Detroit Red Wings be drafting at least fourth overall, possibly third overall in most scenarios. So that's why we ended up seeing the Los Angeles Kings, the play-in round, and the Ottawa Senators get ahead of the Detroit Red Wings. That's just how this goes. It's really not favored for the Detroit Red Wings, as frustrated as Red Wings fans are. Now, there's a couple reasons for this, and I think the glaring example was back in the Connor McDavid draft back in 2015, where the Buffalo Sabres pretty much blew up the entire organization to try and get Connor McDavid. Anytime a goaltender got hot, see you later, they traded him. And they ended up not even winning anyway. They ended up getting Jack Eichel because the Edmonton Oilers got Connor McDavid that year. So they don't want to reward teams for tanking. And that's really what it comes down to. The NHL wants to have parity in its game. And if they see teams willing to go off the rails, trading all their assets to try and acquire that first round pick, or that first overall pick, then teams are going to be more likely to tank. Look what that did for the Edmonton Oilers in the early 2010s. Things didn't turn out so well for them. Taylor Hall, Nail Yakupov, just go on with the list, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. It didn't end up turning out that well for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, Connor McDavid is a different story, but even then, the Edmonton Oilers still they had a solid year this year, but for the first 4 years of Connor McDavid, they only made the playoffs once. So, the Edmonton Oilers are a glaring example of that, but there are other teams. The New Jersey Devils, if they won the draft lottery this year, that would have been the third time in 4 years that they won the draft lottery. So, some teams out here are disappointed. Obviously, the Detroit Red Wings are upset. This is the this is the best draft pick they've had, remember, in the past 30 years. Now, a lot of that is because they had a lot of success during that time, but still, I'm going to make another video talking about the Detroit Red Wings, how even though they're drafting 4th overall, they've still got a pretty solid draft pick ahead of them. So I talk about that in that video. I'm going to be posting that sometime this week. But, the Detroit Red Wings, yes, it's frustrating that they are not going to be getting that top player. It's disappointing. But with this new lottery, even, because I ended up, instead of having the top 3 picks in a lottery, only the 2 picks. So now the worst case for the Detroit Red Wings, they would have 3rd overall. So they would still be in the top 3, which if you're really nitpicking, it's not that big of a difference from 4th overall. Again, it favors teams that at least try to make the playoffs, and even if they miss by 2 or 3 points, you don't have these weird, because the worst spot for most teams is that 17th, 18th, 19th team in the NHL, because you miss the playoffs and you have the worst odds at drafting a highly coveted player in the draft lottery. So they want to keep teams from trying to completely tank at the trade deadline, and also prevent teams from, maybe that you have a Columbus Blue Jackets where it's like, hey, if we miss the playoffs, we miss the playoffs. But if we get in, it looks pretty solid, and they were willing to buy at the trade deadline. Now, I think it makes deadline day a little bit less glamorous and less stuff going on, because I think teams are more willing to take a chance on free agents leaving than just selling off everybody and just waiting till next season. You don't see as much of that now, but again, the NHL wants parity in its game. Even with my proposed format where you have the top 2 picks as lottery picks, even then, it's not going to change it that much. All it does is give the 31st team, eventually the 32nd team, an opportunity to still draft in the top 3, which I think is pretty valuable, especially in a draft like this one. But even then, I think anywhere in the top 5. I think the worst team in the NHL should be drafting in the top 5. I think that's fair, and I think Red Wing fans are upset that they didn't get any of those top 3. But let's be honest, if they got the 3rd overall pick, they'd probably still be pretty disappointed. The 2nd overall pick, yeah, maybe less so. And if they got the 1st overall pick, parties would be going on in Detroit. But I think still with that 4th overall pick, there's really not a lot of disappointment. The Ottawa Senators, who had a 25% chance, still only got 1 pick in that top 3, let alone a 1st overall pick. So that's just how it goes. And they, like I said, they're favoring teams at least trying to make the playoffs and have parity in the NHL. Because think about that last stretch of the NHL season. Those teams that are bottom dwellers aren't going to be selling as many tickets. But if they still have a chance at making the playoffs, the NHL will be making more money because attendance will be higher in those stadiums for even the teams that are lower in the standings. At least teams will be willing to go and still make a playoff push, and the fans will still attend games. But when you have teams like the Buffalo Sabres, the Ottawa Senators, Detroit Red Wings, who are kind of tanking, at the end of the day, the NHL is looking to make money, and they're not making as much money off those franchises when they're tanking for the last month and a half, 2 months of the NHL season. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think of this? Am I crazy? I don't think so. I think it's a valid reason by the NHL for the lottery they have. Honestly, I would keep it the way it is. It creates a lot of headlines, and obviously it's marketing the game. They're going to be able to have another telecast for the top lottery at the end of the play-in round series. So I think it's all in good fun. As frustrating, I'm not a big Red Wings or Senators fan, so maybe my views are a little bit different, but obviously I think it's pretty fair the way it is. And like I said, they're trying to create parity in the NHL, and that's just how it is. You may win, you might not. More likely, you're not going to win because there's 14 other teams that can win as well. That's just how it goes. So let me know in the comment section down below what do you think of that. And if you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey and want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe down below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.